Okay, are you? Okay, everybody. We're going to call the meeting to order. I think we have a lot of Rancho kids out here. Rancho is back in session, huh? Oh, yeah. Okay, just a reminder, flags are at half-staff today, September 11th, in observance of Patriot Day and the National Day of Service Remembrance. You know where you were 11 years ago? I remember distinctly where I was. Our lives were changed forever as a result of the terrorist attack against the United States. So today is Patriots Day. It's a time to pause and to pay tribute to the individuals who lost their lives as a result of those terrible attacks. We honor the memories of every man and every woman who lost their lives and to those who responded to the call of duty to protect our way of life. So let us pause for a moment and pay tribute to them. Today, in a time of war, we also acknowledge the living who serve our country in distant places overseas and here in the United States. We thank them for the great sacrifices they make for us each day. And as you know, we have our firemen in the back. We appreciate all the service that they provide for us every day and save their lives. They put their lives on the line every day for us, as what does law enforcement over here. So if we could just have a pause for a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. And with that, we'll do a roll call.
The record shall reflect that all members are present, with the exception of Councilmember Aguilera.
The next thing on our agenda, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. We have Susan Haynes, a vestry member of the All Saints Episcopal Church this morning to do that, or this evening.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather this evening. We thank you for the beauty and vitality of our city and for the diversity of the people who live and work here. We seek your continued guidance and direction in all that we undertake. Tonight, as we gather on the 11th anniversary of the horror that was September the 11th, 2001, we take a moment to remember the stunning blow our nation was dealt on that dreadful day, the disbelief that gradually turned to anger and deep, deep sorrow as we began to comprehend the hatred that had been directed against us and the unimaginable loss of nearly 3,000 lives. We remember also in the brilliant autumn days that followed the woeful swirl of bagpipes that seemed to permeate our daily lives and the grief we felt as we watched mothers and fathers, husbands, wives, and children weep as countless funerals and processions and memorial services were held. But we remember, too, the pride that quickly blossomed across our nation as unexpected heroes were hailed and strangers smiled again at strangers. And we remember with gratitude the vast outpouring of concern and support from countless people and countries around the globe. Our Creator and Sustainer, thank you for guiding us through those desperate days and for helping us to heal. Please keep us ever mindful, we pray, of your desire for us, for all of us, to live together and grow in harmony and peace, be it in another part of the world or here in our own community. We will never forget. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. The next thing on our agenda, I have a Brown Act notice of simultaneous meeting compensation. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive a compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to the Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. The next thing is our approval of the agenda by City Manager Patrick Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. There are no changes to the agenda.
We didn't have a closed session today, and so moving on our agenda, the next thing are our presentations, and we have 3 of them actually today. So I'm going to have all of my council members come down this morning, and I will do all of these presentations here. I will start. The first presentation is a proclamation declaring September 2012 National Preparedness Month in the City of Vista, and Fire Chief Gary Fisher is here to accept the proclamation and to say a few words. But let me read the proclamation here for you. It says, whereas the San Diego County residents have experienced the effects of various disasters, including earthquakes, extreme summer heat, and devastating wildland fires, resulting in the loss of life and threatening the safety of residents and communities, both physically and economically. Southern California is experiencing prolonged drought and extreme fire conditions similar to 2007 that highlight the importance of disaster preparedness, both at the individual and institutional levels. The aftermath of the 2003 and 2007 firestorms in San Diego demonstrated the necessity for careful and thorough emergency planning and preparedness among individuals, communities, and agencies locally. Whereas the loss of life and property damage can be greatly reduced if the appropriate emergency preparedness measures are taken before, during, and after a major emergency. Whereas the Vista City Council members are committed to recognizing and honoring the many fine efforts that are dedicated to the best ideals of public service, now therefore the Mayor and members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim September 2012 as National Preparedness Month in the City of Vista. So I'm going to have Gary say a few words to you here, and here's a proclamation. Did you want to say a few words? I'll get out of the way here. Get back here.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, good evening, everybody. Well, as you know, when the fires start burning, Captain Rhodey and I get very busy. And so it's really important that you all prepare for that. We've already burned a lot of acreage. Thousands and thousands of acres have already been burned. Millions of dollars expended putting those fires out. And really, it's based on, it really depends on your help and your ability to help us, help you. In other words, if you can clear the area around your house, with the 3 areas of clearing, it helps us very much to defend your home. And I would recommend that you would go to the website that you see up here on the screen, www.readysandiego.org. It gives you a lot of tips on what you can do to prepare, make a plan, make a kit, and get ready to evacuate if necessary, and clear your property. It's very important that you do that so that we can make your property more survivable. Thank you very much for your help.
Stay here. Okay. The next proclamation is declaring October 2012 Rideshare Month and October 3rd, 2012 Walk and Bike to School Day in the City of Vista. And so Deborah Jones of San Diego will accept the proclamation. Let me give this to you. This is here, and let me read this here, the proclamation. So, whereas the month of October is Rideshare Month, and Wednesday, October 3rd, is Walk and Bike to School Day, reducing the peak period traffic congestion and providing alternatives to driving alone, improve the environment by decreasing vehicle emissions, including greenhouse gases, and are key components of our region's quality of life. Sandag sponsors Rideshare Week 2012 from October 1st through 5th, 2012, a national week-long event to promote carpooling, vanpooling, public transit, teleworking, walking, and biking to work and school. Sandag sponsors Rideshare Month during October 2012 through its iCommute program and encourages employers to provide employees sustainable transportation choices to help reduce traffic congestion and greenhouse gas emissions in the San Diego region. Walk and Bike to School Day 2012 is an event that increases the number of children safely walking and biking to school while raising awareness of the health and environmental benefits of walking and biking. Sandag's iCommute program is sponsoring the first regional Walk and Bike to School Day through its school pool program called Walk, Ride, and Roll to School campaign. This is an event that increases the number of children safely walking and biking to school while raising awareness of the health and environmental benefits of walking and biking. So now, therefore, the mayor and members of our Vista City Council encourage employers to offer incentives to employees to use alternatives to driving alone, such as biking to work throughout the year, and do hereby proclaim October 2012 as Rideshare Month and Wednesday, October the 3rd, as Walk and Bike to School Day in the city of Vista. So congratulations. Did you want to say something? Or? Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor and City Council. If you want more information about Rideshare Month in the month of October, you can go to our website, which is icommutesd.com. We have online ride matching. We have a trip tracker program where you can count your carbon savings, your monetary savings from using all kinds of different ways of getting to work besides driving alone. So check us out. We have prize drawings all throughout the whole month of October, and it's a time for you to select another way of getting to work, especially because the Sprinter's right here. You've got great bus transportation, biking to work. We've got great weather when it's not so hot. And finding a carpool partner, who knows, you might make a friend. Thanks.
Oh, pictures? Okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Everybody? Who you want us all together? Here? And here comes one more shot. Oh, wait. We're all moving. Okay, here we go. Okay, our last presentation is a presentation of Lifesaver Awards to Jen Conde, Maureen Cooper, and Gloria Knapp by Fire Chief Gary Fisher, and he's going to assist in presenting the awards. Maybe I could have them come up. Is Jen here? Jen Conde? Oh, there she is. Okay. Yay. Hi. And Maureen Cooper and Gloria. Where's Gloria? Are you Gloria? Is Maureen here? There she is. Okay.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm up here again. So, you know, we're out in the community every day, and we like to think we're doing good things out there for you all. But the reality is that a lot of you are doing really good things out there for yourselves, and that's what we're trying to recognize tonight. We have started a new program in the fire department and with the support of the City Council, and it's called the Vista Lifesaver Award Program, where we recognize somebody who's done a good thing, saved somebody's life or property in the normal course of events during their day. They're not paid to do this. They are just ordinary citizens just like you all, but they step up and they do the right thing when they need to. So just to give you a quick background, cardiac arrests account for 1 million deaths a year. And 1 out of 4 of those folks that have cardiac arrest don't survive. So without some kind of intervention, they can't survive. But with intervention, it is possible to reverse the effects of cardiac arrest and have the victim survive. So on July 16th of this year at the Senior Center, Gloria McClellan Senior Center at Bringle Terrace Park, Helen Pietraforte, I hope I said that right, suffered a cardiac arrest while instructing a dance class. 2 of her students and city staff member Maureen Cooper acted quickly to begin CPR and utilized an AED, which is at the center, which was housed at the center. Their efforts were so successful that by the time the City of Vista paramedics arrived, Helen had a pulse again. As a result of these individuals' quick thinking and a willingness to be involved, Helen is here to thank them. And on behalf of the City Council and the Vista Fire Department, we commend you and truly appreciate your efforts, life-saving efforts. And just to make a couple of points, I want to give thanks to the City Council for having the foresight to allow us to put AEDs in certain places throughout the city. We have them here in City Hall as well. And I also want to give recognition to the crews that helped that day and get Helen to the hospital, as well as Marilyn Anderson here, who is so reluctant to come down here. We had to drag her down here, but she has really been in the leading edge of all of this, and really has really pushed this forward. And so I just want to recognize Marilyn and all the crew members and all the folks that were involved with this. So with that. It's our pleasure to award Gloria Knapp, Jean Conde, and Maureen Cooper the first ever Vista Lifesaver Award. And Helen, where did Helen go? There she is. Did you want to come up and say anything real quick or no?
And here's President Rudy wants it. And dancing again.
I'm alive. Thank you, thank you. These three ladies here, they reacted so fast. I don't even know what happened. I still don't know what happened. All I know is I'm here, and I'm so grateful for all my friends who have been so wonderful to me. Thank you, everybody, and thank you. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Oh, dear. Okay, I'm going to call us all back to order. Soon. Get everybody going here. I'll give them a minute to get out of here. Yeah. Whoa.
This is not even the end of the semester.
I know.
They must have just got the assignment and they started to procrastinate.
Yeah, look at all your Rancho kids out there. It isn't even the end of the semester and you're here early. Yeah. How many of you are from Rancho? How many? Yay. Just a couple. Okay, any minute now. We're moving on. The next thing on our agenda is our consent calendar. Those are items C1 through C7, and we usually pass them all in one motion unless someone pulls one of those items off. We do have C7 has been pulled off by a member of the audience. And so does any of the council members want anything pulled off? If not, then I would entertain a motion for the
I'll go ahead and
balance.
make a motion for the remainder of the consent calendar.
Okay, second, okay. Okay. Okay, please cast your ballots. That's really a ballot, I guess. I think I can. Okay, that motion passes with Councilmember Aguilera, who is excused. The next thing we're going to do is go to item C7, which is the North Melrose Drive at Highland, West Los Angeles Drive traffic signal project and the award of construction contract. And we're going to have a presentation by Sam or by John?
By Sam Hassan and our city's traffic engineer, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. So I'll give a little bit of background of how we got to this point of awarding the construction contract for a traffic signal at this intersection. So the intersection of North Melrose Drive and Highland Drive / West Los Angeles Drive met the established state standards for the installation of a traffic signal. That was a couple of years ago. And some of the factors that these standard warrants or factors that are considered in evaluating an intersection for a signal include the traffic volumes at the intersection, pedestrian volumes, and also collisions. So one of the factors that stood out about this intersection, in addition to the heavy traffic volumes, was the collision history. It had 11 collisions in the past 5 years. This is a current history of the collisions up to just a few months ago. And that also includes a pedestrian fatality, one of those 11 collisions that happened. So once we do the evaluation of intersections for a traffic signal, we prioritize them. And based on available funds, we present a traffic signal priority list to the City Council. And we recommend the top 2 or 3 based on available funding for signals to proceed to construction. So back in fiscal year 2010-11, that's the last time that we presented a traffic signal priority list where we had funds available to build signals. The intersection of North Melrose and Highland, Los Angeles was ranked at the top of the list. So the list at the time, that signal priority list, included a total of 19 intersections which qualified for a traffic signal. And as I mentioned, the 19 intersections were prioritized and ranked. Just some of the factors that the priority system considers, which is a completely separate system from what we use to whether to warrant a signal or not, just to rank the intersections that are already qualified for a signal. It includes traffic volumes, accidents, traffic progression along an arterial, the presence of schools, pedestrians, as well as other physical conditions at the intersection. And also, as I mentioned, this intersection ranked at the top of that priority list. So in February 2010, the City Council approved the traffic signal at the intersection of Melrose and Highland, Los Angeles. And in June 2010, the intersection was added to the as capital improvement program budget. So based on that, the design of the traffic signal started and has been completed already. The project was advertised for construction, and we received a total of 7 bids. And the bids were publicly opened on August 8th, 2012. And Tri-Group Construction and Development, Inc. submitted a bid of $328,914, which was determined to be the lowest responsible and responsive bid. There's also another request with the council action today to amend the CIP budget to add additional funds to the project. And at the time that the project was added to the CIP program, things came up since then during the final design of the project. For example, compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires upgrading all the curb ramps to current standard. We also found a missing piece of sidewalk on Highland Drive near the intersection, as well as bad pavement also on Highland Drive that needed to be replaced. So that brought the total project cost to approximately $412,000. And the current project balance is approximately $287,000. So it is requested that the CIP budget be amended to add $125,000 to this project. Just to show what the intersection is, North Melrose Drive runs north-south, and Highland Drive is on the west. West Los Angeles Drive is on the east. It's an offset intersection. It's sort of really 2 separate intersections that will be treated as one, with one traffic signal that controls both of them. Just some pictures of the intersection. This is on North Melrose Drive looking northbound. So Highland Drive would be on the left, and Los Angeles is further down on the right. And this is looking the other way, looking southbound on Melrose Drive toward Los Angeles Drive and Highland Drive. This is also looking southbound as you pull out of Los Angeles. You can see there's pedestrian activity that occurs quite a bit at the intersection. This is looking southbound on Melrose towards Los Angeles. There's also a lot of vehicles that pull out of Los Angeles and make a left turn, which is quite a difficult move during the PM peak hour. So the recommendations for the council action tonight is to approve awarding a construction contract to Tri-Group Construction and Development, Inc. for construction of the North Melrose Drive, Highland Drive / Los Angeles Drive traffic signal project, and to also amend the capital improvement program budget for fiscal year 2012-13 to fund the additional funds needed for the project.
We have one speaker. Do you want to hear the speaker first? Okay, Cliff Kaiser.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Just a couple of observations on this traffic signal. It has been delayed for a couple of years, if not longer. There's been justification made that we didn't have the money at that time to invest in traffic signal at this light or at this set of intersections, and I would say that you're probably still in the same boat that you were back then when you delayed the decision before. We entered into this fiscal year with a $2 million structural deficit. Redevelopment funds was rated again, increasing that deficit a couple more $1 million. This project is coming in over budget already, and it hasn't even started. We're in a fiscal problem right now. Now's not the time to be investing in optional items. Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor Ritter. Mr. Connolly, in this intersection, could you put the picture back about 2 or 3 pictures that shows the one with the little point on it? Right there. Where the point traffic signal, that's traffic signal is going to be right there. That's going to serve West Los Angeles and Highland Drive, both of them?
That's correct.
But how's it going to do it? Because there's a difference there. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, so there will be indications at Highland Drive, like let's say you're going southbound on Melrose, there will be like, the signal indications with the mast on the mast arm at Highland. If you're going northbound, there'll be a separate set of indications.
Oh, so there'll be two different lines.
Correct.
2 different, okay.
And then the traffic will be moving together on North Melrose.
Okay.
And then Los Angeles.
So,
yeah,
are we going to have some type of media in between there?
a median,
Median?
just
right
a
in the-
painted median, not a raised median.
Pardon?
A painted median on the pavement, but not a raised median.
Not a raised one.
Right, because the street as a,
Traffic.
yeah.
It's too much traffic. Okay. So then all the corners will be brought up to handicap.
Yes.
Why, well, it's 400 because it's 2. Before, it used to, a set of them would be what, 250 to little over 200 to 250,000, correct?
Yeah, what added to the cost was, first of all, that the intersection is larger, sort of like 2 separate intersections, so there's more hardware. Also, we found a missing piece of sidewalk on Highland Drive, as well as bad pavement also on Highland Drive, in addition to all the curb ramps that need to be upgraded to disability requirements.
Yeah. So right and left, how many feet are we going from each intersection on sidewalk, pavement? Are we redoing it, all that?
No, there's only one piece of missing sidewalk on the south side of Highland Drive for about 150 feet.
And the rest of it's just going to be left alone?
Yeah, the rest of
It's
the
all pretty good
sidewalks.
shape?
Correct, yeah, that's the piece. And the rest of the sidewalks exist, but the curb ramps are not up to date, that they need to be upgraded to meet access requirements.
400 and some thousand, that's a lot of money.
That's what, we've estimated even a little lower than that. The construction bid, the lowest construction bid came about, $10,000 or so more than we estimated. That's unfortunately the price is currently.
Councilman, I might add that for a cookie cutter intersection for a traffic signal, you're looking at just under $300,000 just for the traffic signal and design alone, and that doesn't include the ADA curb ramps or the asphalt or the sidewalk. It is expensive.
Who's doing the sidewalk, the curb, the asphalt? We are?
The
that's-
contractor will be taking care of
Contractor.
that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and just there, and there's crosswalks at Los Angeles, and also crosswalks at Highland to go across Melrose, correct?
Correct,
And with
yes.
signals for the. Go ahead, Councilmember Lopez. One more question?
Mr. Connolly, how many accidents have been in that area, in those 2 streets in the past 3 years? Do you have any kind of idea?
I have a report from the past 5 years from January 1, 2007 till March 2012. Between the 2 intersections, there have been 11 collisions, which is pretty high relative to similar locations.
That's high?
Yes. And all these are right-of-way related, meaning either pedestrians crossing or vehicles pulling out of these side streets and getting hit by vehicles on Melrose.
Putting that intersection in there, excuse me, Mayor, I'm taking a little longer. Putting that intersection will actually slow the traffic through that whole corridor, correct?
When the light is red, of course, there will be a break, there will be an interruption.
Hopefully that'll save lives and injuries for the folks of our community.
Yeah, the direct, intent of the signal obviously is to address the collision problem.
Thank you, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Gronke.
So let's talk about the crosswalk that's going across Melrose. Okay, I know that area, I used to live in that area. Basically, there's a school not too far from there, and this is certainly going to be a crosswalk that's going to be utilized by those children as they go to school. So is that going to be one of the intersections, the newer intersections that we seem to have now have lights on them with a timer that gives an indication exactly how much time they have to go across? Is that what we'll be seeing here too?
It will be a typical crosswalk with the the flash in hand and the raised hand and the walk-in figure.
Okay.
It will not be the countdown type. That's the one that gives counts down from when the flash in hand starts. It won't be, but that could be an easy upgrade that we can consider.
Well, I have a concern because typically young people probably raced across that street in between traffic, and now that we're controlling that intersection, it's more likely to be used as a crosswalk for the school there. So whether we go in that direction or not, there's going to be adequate time for someone to cross that street.
We will time it according to standards. Of course, there's a standard pedestrian speed that we put in there, in addition to the initial period when the walk-in figure comes on, and then plus whatever time it takes for a average speed pedestrian to make it across. So we will time it adequately.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing is as we go through this process, as was said before, and it's true that this is definitely one of the better raceways in Vista. How do we indicate before the construction that this change is going to occur so that drivers that go through that corridor are well aware of that change?
Well, the signal hardware will be up at least for a few days. Probably considering all the construction that's going on, it's going to be a lot more than a few days, but the actual signal poles and mast arms will be there probably for a week before the signal is actually turned on. So the normal drivers, the regular commuters going through there, and the residents, the neighbors, will see that a signal will be there before it's actually turned on. We will also have signal ahead signs, the yellow warning signs in advance. We will have one in each direction on Melrose.
Okay. And the last piece is, this is a corridor that's utilized for young people going to school. There's such a program as Safe Streets. There's money available for improvements for sidewalks. Are we utilizing some of that here or no?
Safe Routes to School is the state grant program, as well as there's a federal one. We did a project recently, actually, just to the east on Los Angeles. The sidewalks in front of the Boys and Girls Club that go all the way up to the Los Angeles intersection, that was actually using that grant program. And we're always pursuing, additional funds as they become available.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mayor, if I might add, just in talking about fees, there's two funding sources for this project. One is deferred street construction deposits that developers have deposited for future growth in the area, as well as local transportation fees are the two funding sources to pay for this.
Councilmember Coles.
I think this is a very judicious move on the part of the city to protect an intersection that has shown increasing danger in the years, and we've all experienced the traffic flow there that can get a little bit, as Councilmember Gronke said, a raceway. The other thing, with so much talk and discussion and public review of this, and the history of accidents and even recent ones, I think as a city we need to protect ourselves against the liabilities that we could incur if we knowingly ignore a duty that we have to protect areas like this. And I think we could save money in the long run by investing in this safe intersection and not being subject to being named or a deep pocket in a lawsuit. That, I think Darrell will second that notion. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve this item. But I think Councilmember Lopez wants to ask a question.
Another question, please.
Okay.
To Engineer, when you put a new sign like that, sometimes I notice, I've been in other cities, or we have some here in our community, down 200 or 300 yards, they have a pole, and it starts as soon as it gets dark with a little yellow light that is flashing, and then it says down below, signal ahead, especially when it first starts. And at night, that way it puts people more to thinking that, there's going to be a crosswalk there. Are we doing any of that kind of stuff? Do we do any of that? Have you looked at that?
we're doing the signal ahead signs.
Just a letter, that's it, huh?
Well, it's a big yellow warning sign. We haven't considered the flashing lights just because the street is pretty flat and straight and you can see the light from far away. Usually we reserve that flashing light for situations where, there's a sudden condition around the corner or there's a hill that you can't see what's coming. I think in this case it should be adequate just with the signs.
So would you cross that at night?
So, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I was going to say that my suggestion was going to be that they put one in the middle of the street, maybe with a flashing, just for the first maybe couple of months, just because people have been killed on that street. I mean, there's not too long ago there was a lady killed there, and I think somebody was just hit in the last week in that area, and it's just a safety thing. So I was going to suggest like in the middle of the street, and if you can do a flashing sign, just because motorists are just going to be used to racing down there and not knowing. Even though you have a sign, sometimes they don't see it. So
we'll consider some of those options.
Okay, I would suggest that. And also, I think you should put, because there's kids and a lot of people crossing there, I don't know if it's cost a lot of extra, but I think the countdown sign would be really important to how many minutes they have to cross the street, because just that blinking, a flashing hand doesn't mean anything even to me. I'd probably chance it if it was flashing, but if I see it's only 2 seconds and it's a wide street, I wouldn't go across it. So, sure. And I think it's so important for safety. That's the only place across between North and Olive, and it's a long section there, and I think I see people crossing there all the time, and it's very dangerous. So I'm very happy to see this go in there. So I guess with that, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I have a second, but are we going to look at possibly the light, the flashing light? Some way?
We'll take a look at it, and if it's possible, we'll use the contingency fund to pay for those as we get further along in construction.
Okay,
but we'll consider both options that were brought up.
Yeah, let us know or something, too.
Thank you, Ms. Ritter.
You're welcome. Okay, so I have a second. Did you second it?
Yes.
Okay, then we're ready to cast our vote. Please cast your votes. What was that? Oh, there it goes. Okay, motion passes unanimously with Councilmember Aguilera excused. The next and the last item on our agenda tonight is our discussion item, San Luis Rey Watershed Comprehensive Load Reduction Plan. Very exciting for the students.
Thank you, Mayor. Paul Hartman, our Stormwater Project Manager, will provide the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. The purpose of the presentation this evening is to provide an overview of the San Luis Rey watershed water quality issues, to discuss recent regulatory developments in the watershed and their associated requirements imposed on the city, and to review the comprehensive load reduction plan developed by the stakeholders to be submitted to the Regional Water Quality Control Board in October. Let's begin with a quick overview of the watershed itself. It's approximately 562 square miles, which is equivalent to about 360,000 acres. Of this, the city of Vista makes up only 750 acres or so we're less than 1% of the land area within the watershed. The watershed drains from the Palomar Hot Springs Mountains in the east, 55 miles inland, to the Pacific Ocean, discharging at the San Luis Rey River mouth at the harbor in Oceanside. Approximately 54% of the watershed is undeveloped, with most of the population centers in the western portion of the watershed in the cities of Oceanside, cities of Vista. Primary water quality issues within the watershed are bacteria and nutrients, with impairments occurring at the beach, in the river itself, and in Guajome Lake. So the Clean Water Act tells us that we have to meet water quality standards within the watershed, and what that means is we have to meet beneficial uses within the watershed. For example, the waters need to be swimmable and fishable. We also have to meet water quality objectives within the actual water body, so we have to meet numeric criteria established by the EPA. So the water quality standards we need to meet in the San Luis Rey are related to body contact recreation at the beach. In other words, our goal here is to protect public health for those recreating at the ocean. So a minute to describe the regulatory process as it affects the watershed and the discharges within. The Clean Water Act was established in 1972 with the intent of regulating point source discharges into the water bodies of the U.S. For example, regulating wastewater treatment plants and their discharges into the waters. In 1987, the Clean Water Act was amended to include stormwater discharges, urban runoff, so other types of non-point source discharges. The Clean Water Act requires states to identify and prioritize water bodies that are not meeting water quality standards, i.e. the beneficial uses and water quality objectives. And then what happens is the State Water Board requires the regional water boards, our local San Diego Water Board, to develop what's called total maximum daily loads. I'll explain more about total maximum daily loads, or TMDLs, in just a minute. What happens then is the regional water board pushes the regulations down to the local jurisdictions and says, okay, we've developed the total maximum daily load. Now it's your turn to develop the implementation plans and programs to actually achieve the load reductions required in the TMDL. So what exactly is a TMDL? It's the maximum amount of a pollutant that you can discharge into a water body and continue to meet water quality standards. So what does the TMDL require us to do? It requires us to reduce the amount of pollutants that we're putting into the water bodies over time to meet the water quality standards. In other words, you know how much you're discharging into the water body, you know where your objectives are, so what the TMDL does is calculates the amount of that reduction you need to get to meet your objectives over a 10 to 20 year time frame. The total maximum daily load also requires submittal of an implementation plan. That's what I bring to you this evening. It's also called a comprehensive load reduction plan. So how does this process work for the San Luis Rey? The State Water Board began by identifying and prioritizing the impairments for our watershed. They targeted bacteria and nutrients. The Regional Water Board began in the early 2000s developing the TMDL, which was actually for 20 beaches and creeks throughout San Diego County. So it also included the San Luis Rey shoreline, but it impacts the entire San Diego region. In the development of the TMDL, the Regional Board identified various sources of pollutants contributing to the impairments, and then they developed load allocations via extensive modeling and monitoring within the watershed, all based on the land use within the watershed. So what that means to us, if you look at the pie graph here on the screen on the right, there's 4 point source dischargers that have been identified within the TMDL. So it's the City of Vista, the County of San Diego, the City of Oceanside, and Caltrans. That's because we all own storm drain systems within the watershed, so we're considered a point source discharger into the watershed. Of the load that's attributed to the storm drain systems, the City of Vista contributes about less than 1%, 0.59% of the total loading going in related to storm drain discharges. So the Regional Board developed this, the TMDL. They told the dischargers to go and develop your plan, your comprehensive load reduction plan to show us how you're going to comply with the TMDL. As I said, the comprehensive load reduction plan is a roadmap for compliance. It's basically a list of activities that we're looking to implement in the coming years to get us into compliance with the TMDL. It's implemented over a 10 to 20 year time frame. We're required to meet dry weather load reductions within 10 years, close to 90%, which is effectively eliminating all of your dry weather urban drool type of runoff to our systems. And then our load reduction for wet weather is just over 10%. And the time frame for that, because storm events are much more challenging, is actually extended to 20 years. So we're looking at compliance time frames extending out into the year 2031 for this TMDL. We achieve these through the implementation of non-structural programs and structural best management practices. We're intending for a phased implementation of these approaches, beginning with and focusing primarily on your non-structural programs. These are activities and programs that are designed to reduce pollutant loading at the source. They're considered much more effective than the structural BMPs that we'll talk about also. They're considered to be more cost effective because they do get at the source of the pollutants. We're looking to build on existing programs. We've had a stormwater program in Vista for over 10 years, and we've developed some fantastic programs. We're looking to build on the programs that are already in place to achieve the load reductions required in the TMDL. If the non-structural programs don't get us where we need to be 10, 15, 20 years down the road, we're required to look at structural best management practices. Those are engineered systems designed to treat urban runoff after it's already run off the land. It'll be collected, treated, and then discharged clean into the creeks. Also, as part of the CLRP, there's required compliance monitoring. We need to know what the water quality is and how we're doing at achieving our load reductions. And there's some special studies that are also a part of the load reduction plan. The slide's kind of tough to read, but it describes some of the non-structural best management practices that we're looking at. Primarily, like I said, enhancing existing programs, and we're looking to focus on human sources of bacteria within the watershed. We have done some studies over the last few years that were grant funded that identified human bacteria within the San Luis River at the river mouth at the beach. So for those, we focus top priority on the top 4 lines here for the non-structural programs, really focusing on sanitary sewer systems and sanitary sewer overflows, make sure our infrastructure is tight and not contributing to the problem. We're looking at on-site wastewater treatment systems, so septic systems in the area. We're looking at homeless programs, trying to figure out how to reduce the impacts of the homeless encampments and things on bacteria loading in the creeks and rivers. So those are some examples. There's quite a list here of the non-structural programs we're looking to implement. That's our first line of defense and primary. If we get to the structural BMPs, these are regional engineered systems. For example, subsurface flow wetlands. There's a photo of a detention basin on the right that's got some constructed wetlands in the interior. It's a good example. Our hope is that our non-structural programs will result in the load reductions we need and allow us to meet the TMDL requirements. We really don't want to have to implement any structural concerns, and I'll show you why on the next slide. So the fiscal impacts of the regulations may be significant. Here we've broken them up by the types of activities required under the TMDL, and this includes our non-structural BMPs, which we've discussed, upgrades to the sanitary sewer potentially, structural best management practices, required monitoring, and special studies. The largest piece by far of the cost estimates are related to the structural best management practices. As you can see in the right-hand column, if we end up having to construct multiple or all of the regional treatment systems identified within the load reduction plan, the watershed costs are on the order of $200 million. Because of our limited contribution within Vista being less than 1% of the watershed loading, Vista's cost over the 20 years are significantly less, and those are in the center column there. So your total cost, including all of your structural BMPs, are between 2.9 and 7.6 million. And again, this is over a 20-year time frame. However, and this is key, it's our intent that through a combination of the non-structural best management practices to reduce loads and special studies that we'll be performing to improve the science involved in development of the TMDL, we will achieve compliance without having to construct the regional BMPs. Through the enhancement of existing programs, the required monitoring, the focused special studies, the impacts to the city are expected to be between $25,000 and $50,000 annually. So to conclude the presentation, our recommendation this evening is to approve submittal of the comprehensive load reduction plan for the San Luis Rey watershed to the Regional Water Quality Control Board. It's due no later than October 4th. The next steps we'll take, we'll begin implementation of our non-structural BMP programs. We're teed up, we've budgeted this year, we're ready to go on several of those programs. And we'll also begin some of the required monitoring. We're also participating currently in some special studies to, again, improve the science behind the TMDL with the idea of working the regulations in our favor eventually. That leads to preparing for a reopener in 2016. And what that means is the regional board, we've pushed the board to put a 5-year reopener clause in the TMDL, which will allow us to bring the regulation back in front of the Regional Water Board and discuss what we've learned, discuss the new science, and discuss our revised approaches to meeting the load reductions. Thank you for your time this evening. This concludes concludes the presentation. John and myself are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilmember Lopez?
Thank you, Mayor Ritter. Yeah, I probably have a lot of questions. We monitor our portion out there by Wahomie Park, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, we do surface and we do deep well testing, or just surface?
As part of our program, we're only monitoring surface water quality.
Okay, so what numbers do we have that show the rest of them downstream that we have? Are you going by the 1% or that percentage on the actual land that it's crossing, or actual bacterias that are in there?
The load reductions were developed based on models that modeled the land use or the land cover.
So there's
But
no
those
real
models
facts.
are-
There's no facts that we're dumping something in there, is there?
These models are validated with actual water quality data that's been collected. So we're developing a model, and we're plugging in empirical data that's actual water quality data to make sure that those models are as accurate as we can make them.
Mm-hmm. So, well, right now, for the next couple of years, next 4 years, correct? Then we will come back again and be doing the heavier testing to see what our best practice are in developing less bacteria. Is that what you're saying here?
Absolutely. It'll be focused mostly on dry weather flows because that's our short-term compliance timeline with 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you show the big map, when you show it going from the end of North Santa Fe, it crosses on 76 there, and it goes down into the San Luis Rey Valley. From there, it comes straight out. Right above that, there was 2 huge dairies. Now, those dairies were there for 50 years or better. And would that be filtering into the San Luis Rey? And how long would it be? Have any kind of idea if that's creating a problem for downstream and creating those bacteria numbers, higher bacteria numbers? Is that creating that, do you think? Could be creating, and then they're farming and putting commercial fertilizer on all those hills in that whole valley, and then we come in, they bring us in on the picture, and we're the ones having to put the money up for maybe they have more of a problem than we do. Do we have a percentage that we actually have to pay that for this study and do all this work? Is that making sense to you?
I think so, yeah. So the bottom line is we're accountable for the bacteria that's discharged from our storm drain system. When the TMDL is developed, when the regulations are developed, if you look at the pie chart here, a good bit of the regulation is attributing 36% of the load is attributed to agriculture. They're regulated directly by the Regional Water Board. We don't have jurisdiction over agriculture, and so they're responsible for meeting their load allocations, their load reductions. So yes, it is a source. There's no question in my mind. Can we regulate it? Probably not. So it's our charge to understand what's coming from our storm drain system and be responsible for that.
So what we're going to do in the next 4 years is like no drugs. You go to school, at schools, you have these programs, stop using drugs, okay? So what we're going to be doing is like going to schools and doing things like that where we can educate kids on how to not throw things down the drain, or is that what we're going to be doing for the next 4 years?
We've been doing it for the past 10
Pardon?
or 15. We have been doing that for the last 10 or 15, and we will continue to do so. Outreach is the cornerstone of our programs, without a doubt.
Now, 15 years ago, did we know about this bacteria and where now it's becoming a problem, and we've been doing it for 15 years?
I would say yes, that we knew about the bacteria, but it didn't appear to be as big a problem at the time.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Gronke.
For anybody listening in the crowd right now, there's no immediate danger. We talk about these bacteria and so forth. I mean, we're talking about a long-term solution to runoff.
That's correct. The only the health department posts signs at the beach if there are water quality samples taken that exceed bacteria standards. So if there's no signs posted, which is the majority of the time, there are no implications to public health.
Okay. So I think you said it very clearly in the beginning, it's something imposed on the city. So coming from that frame of mind, we as a council have decided to do some major capital improvements to our sewer program. So some of those numbers that you see there can be offset with some of those improvements that we're going to make in that.
That's correct. Actually, there is some sewer work that needs to be done within this area of the watershed that will hopefully improve any potential, bacteria leakage into the stormwater system. But that's part of the program.
Can we go back to the original map that shows the watershed area? And so as we look at this map and we look at the numbers for that little sliver that we're involved in this one, when we talk about additional watersheds that run through our city, those numbers are going to be much greater.
The potential for that are much greater. Within the Buena Vista watershed specifically, that's the last remaining watershed that needs to be evaluated for a TMDL.
And so I'm an environmentalist, don't get me wrong, but it seems like there's some major costs that are going to be borne by the city in the very near term.
The potential is there for the Buena Vista watershed, like I said, and that's forthcoming. So we'll be tracking that, and Paul and his team are attending the meetings and following up with the regional board. The impetus for that, yes, is possible, but we're hopeful that through some of the work that's being done in the lagoon and some of the work that's being done in the watershed right now, potential for mitigation, money from SANDAG for the widening of I-5, the EIR that's going forward with the lagoon for the restoration of it, that we can be part of those efforts, and some of those projects, if they move forward, may act as solutions to the stormwater problems within that lagoon. For this area of the watershed that we're responsible, we're such a small sliver that it really doesn't have that significant of an impact to what we already budget for our normal stormwater program activities.
Okay. And my last comment is it's a 20-year plan. Obviously, there's some things that we'll do structurally, but there's also going to do educationally too. Would it come down to the point where someone might be fined for water in their driveway and having the water go off? And I mean, that's the potential.
That's certainly there. The next municipal permit that's coming up right now that they're working on will change the requirements that we're under right now and make them more stringent. That seems to be the way things are moving with the state right now.
And as we talk about this permit, this could not be the end of it. There could be some other sources, or not sources, but other bacterials or whatever it may be that the state or the feds might say we need to regulate those more closely. And so they may impose an additional cost on the city as we try to control those.
That's possible. I think the intent of this plan is to try to control that and try to identify, what programs are in place and what measures we are going to undertake if it gets to be to a certain point. That's where we get into these heavy cost capital projects. We at this point are fairly confident that if we follow this plan, we'll be within the realm of what we can afford to budget for. But yes, if the plan changes and they make more stringent requirements, it could create fiscal issues for the city.
You talked about a 5-year window where you can reopen it, but it could be reopened by the higher authorities at any moment.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's the, Councilmember Cole, sorry.
Yes, thank you for the, I think you did a fine job of explaining a fairly complex issue that we've all come to know so much about in recent years when we see beach closures and fines for spillage and that sort of thing. Fortunately, our first run at this affects only a small part of our city, so we can kind of get our feet wet, so to speak, and see how we can best manage our responsibility here. I know that these regulations are imposed at the state and federal level, and we have to respond. We don't have a choice. And even if we did, I think we should be sensitive and responsive to the waste that we generate into the oceans and the nearby areas of habitation. I'm always frustrated with unfunded mandates that come, and this seems to be one of those. Is there any legislation or efforts on the horizon when we get these regulations and mandates for corrections coming toward us, that there's a source of funding that follows some of those mandates? And is there maybe a portion of funding that's following this mandate?
No, there's not. We unfortunately have to rely on whatever funding we can, manage. There is regional funding sources that are probably available and may become more available in the future, like SANDAG money, Transnet money, sales tax money that's generated for regional improvements. And that may be pushed in the stormwater realm if all
Right.
the local jurisdictions,
Yeah.
get down the road and are in the same boat as us and can't afford those improvements. But right now, the burden's on the cities to pay for it.
Well, I would just like us to keep vigilant on seeking funding sources to help us with these kinds of issues. But with that in mind, I would make a motion to approve submittal of this plan to keep ourselves on track.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. That motion passes with Councilmember Aguilera excused. That moves us on to oral communications, and we just have one speaker, Renee Glotzbaugh. Push the button on there, at the bottom. There's a little green, where's a little light there? Try it. No? Push it again. Does the little green light go on?
Is it on now?
Okay, now you got it.
I'm going to read, I'll read the letter here. Greetings, Mayor Ritter and City Council members and City Clerk Attorney and Ron Brownwall of Guahomie Park and County Supervisors Roberts, Jacobs, Price, Horn, Cox, and Sandag. It is not right and just to market and sell the dangerous drug alcohol at the Pirate Fair, forthcoming family event to be held at the popular Vistas Guahomie Park that sells no alcohol, at the Harvest Festival and the Civil War enactment and the antique gas and steam engine shows. Beautiful Lisette Silva, 5 years old, and beautiful Juju Figueroa, 5 years old, trusted Lizette's mother, 22-year-old, to protect them, but she drank too much alcohol for the road, drowning her two beautiful little girls. One was her own daughter, and another one was a daughter of a male friend, also surviving the tragedy. Her van plunged into a 30-foot deep reservoir, 8, 9, 12. This tragedy could have been avoided if the young mother had chosen to be in a healthy lifestyle. So please do the right thing for Vista's youth and surrounding Oceanside youth who deserve the right to be in a healthy lifestyle. That is a healthy lifestyle in a family-friendly event where the private fair could be no alcohol, could be friendly pirates that don't drink, and soft drinks and popcorn and good food. The taxpayers, Health and Human Services has this mission statement: building healthier and safer North County communities that strengthen children, youth, families, and seniors. This by Director Nick Mancioni wrote that statement. So please do it, and please follow the healthy road. And please remember the beautiful 8 students who died in the year 2009 on the road crashes by the unhealthy beverage alcohol. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Glotzbaugh. The next thing is our remarks from our council members. Councilmember Lopez? Okay. Councilmember Coles?
I can pass tonight, too.
Mayor Pro Tem Grunke?
I'm not going to pass.
You're not going to pass?
I've got a couple things. First of all, we talked about 9/11, and you and I attended a very nice event over the weekend at the local church. They did an excellent job as a memorial for the people who lost their lives, and I think you might be able to speak to that just more, too. I have one other thing I'd like to talk about, and that goes back to one of the boards that you and I sit on. I had the opportunity to vote on an item And when I had to leave early, and when I left, I was under the impression that since I signed my name down in 2 different places and I represent the city and Buena Sanitation, that I would there have 2 votes at that particular decision. And then I found out later that wasn't the case. So I guess I'm a bit concerned. I have a letter here from their attorney, and basically one of the suggestions is that maybe we as an agency needs to send 2 people representing Buena and 2 people representing Vista to that particular board in order to get our voices heard properly. I don't know if that's the solution, but I think we need to, as a council, think about how we're going to approach this, because it appears to me that Vista's not being, their voice is not being heard in that particular venue. So I don't know that the city manager or the city attorney would like to speak to that at all, but
No,
I'm
I know that.
concerned.
Yeah, no, I understand your concern. We share the concern, and the mayor and I have met, and city attorney's been briefed on it, and I think we're going to meet with the general manager of Encina to discuss this issue and either present the option of having 4 members or changing the governance rules so that both votes count.
Okay, and my final remarks, I would just say the final show of the Moonlight season, which is Sweeney Todd, opens soon, September 14th through the October 6th. If you guys haven't seen it, if you haven't been to the Moonlight, you should go. It's a good show, and this will be a great one. So, City Manager, do you have a report?
I just wanted to say at this point in time, it appears that the regular televised city council meeting for September 25th will be canceled. The next one will be on October 9th. And with that said, we won't have an opportunity to plug at the end of September the Vista Business Expo, which is on October 10th. So it's a great way to get out and see hundreds of businesses out there and check out what we have in our community. So I just wanted to put a plug in. If anybody wants to check out the Chamber's website at vistachamber.org, they can find out more about that event.
Okay, City Attorney.
Well, I'd just like to remark that the city received many compliments and congratulations at the annual League of California Cities meeting with respect to our victory in the California Supreme Court, and many people were appreciative of our efforts.
Yeah. City Clerk, nothing? Okay, with that, we are adjourned. We have lots of things to be signed, so we'll all try and help you guys, okay?